All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video on Brandon Aiyuk. What is the latest on Brandon Aiyuk? My goodness, how many Aiyuk videos have we done this summer in anticipation of some decision coming down the pike on Brandon Aiyuk? And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week, from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket. Tell them that Krug sent you. And this video also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. Call my friend Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264 for all your sports cards and collectible needs. And thanks to Sharp Corners for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right. Earlier today, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I should say the Philadelphia Eagles, traded for Washington Commanders wide receiver Jahan Dotson. So the Commanders send Jahan Dotson to the Eagles in exchange of draft picks. I think Washington moves up a round or two. The Eagles throw a third-round pick. They wind up getting a fifth-round pick. They wind up trading a couple sevenths in return. Washington gets a couple picks for Jahan Dotson. And what it's done is it's led to more speculation today that the Commanders may be ready or getting ready to trade for Brandon Aiyuk. Now, okay, how do I feel about the Aiyuk thing? I really feel strongly about the Aiyuk situation, that either the 49ers have to have Brandon Aiyuk, or they have to have players coming back for Brandon Aiyuk to win the Super Bowl this year. And I feel very strongly about that. They either have to have Aiyuk on this team, or they have to get players back for Brandon Aiyuk on this team to still be a Super Bowl contender. If you have Aiyuk, I think you're a Super Bowl contender. If you trade Aiyuk for some good pieces coming back, I think potentially you're still a Super Bowl contender. If you trade Brandon Aiyuk for 2025 draft capital, or draft capital in any draft after any other draft going forward, because the next draft is not till 2025, you trade Aiyuk for draft picks in the future, and you're no longer a Super Bowl contender, or at least you're no longer the Super Bowl contender that you are right now. You're less of a Super Bowl contender if you subtract him and add nothing. It's not that complicated. People will sit there and go, well, he only caught 3 balls in the Super Bowl. You wouldn't have even been in the Super Bowl without Brandon Aiyuk. Let's not be idiots. Yeah, he only caught 3 balls in the Super Bowl. Would they have beaten Detroit without Brandon Aiyuk? No. Were they getting to the Super Bowl without Brandon Aiyuk? No. And you're an idiot if you think they were. They were not beating Detroit and Green Bay and going to the Super Bowl without Brandon Aiyuk. And you're nuts if you think otherwise. Now, you can look at it in a vacuum and go, well, he only caught 3 balls for 50 yards in the Super Bowl and they didn't win anyway. Okay. But I that's one way to look at it. You're talking about an all-pro wide receiver who's 26 years old. You're not going to subtract him for 0. And if you wind up with draft capital, you essentially would be getting for this season 0 back for Brandon Aiyuk. I agree with JT the Brick, who came on the stream yesterday and basically said as much. You take away Brandon Aiyuk and you give the Niners 2025 draft capital, and they're no longer the Niners. They're no longer the same Super Bowl contender. And I've had people go, what are you talking about, Krug? That you're just talking about one wide receiver. They have an elite defense. Do they? They have an elite defense? 49ers have a pretty good defense. Elite? No, not elite. Javon Hargrave and Malik Collins are your interior tackle tandem. Is that elite? No, that's not elite. Devondre Campbell is going to play this whole year for Dre Greenlaw. Is that elite? No, That's not elite. Were the 49ers a top 5 team against the run last year? Well, they actually might have been a top 5 team against the run last year. I think they might have been 3rd or 4th against the run. But in reality, they weren't. It's just teams didn't run on them because their offense was so spectacular. They scored 30 a game. Giants couldn't run on them. Cardinals couldn't run on them. Dallas couldn't run on them. Why? Not because they couldn't run. It's because they stopped running because the Niners offense put up 30. And those games got very one-sided. But if you looked at the preseason, they didn't stop the run in the preseason. If you looked at the postseason, they didn't really stop the run consistently in the postseason. So now you're going to take from a team that was middle of the pack for the most part. If you looked at some of the more serious numbers that kind of that take out and isolate certain aspects of the run game. If you look at the Niners against the run, and now you take away their best run defensive lineman, best run defender in Eric Armstead, their best run defender linebacker in Dre Greenlaw, and their best run defender, in the secondary is probably a Fonga. He's not ready to roll week 1, most likely. So you might go at the beginning of this year with a run defense that was challenged in the playoffs that has lost Greenlaw, Armstead, and Hufanga. So let's not talk about the Niner defense like it's elite. I don't think it's elite. I think they got a nice secondary. I think they got a really good tandem at linebacker when they're healthy. And they've got a great player, Nick Bosa. The rest of it, come on. Great. The coordinator is never coordinated before. Okay? So before we start calling them great, they don't have a coordinator who has any experience. They just lost their 3 best run defenders. They weren't great against the run last year. They're better in the secondary. They added some good pieces, Mustafa, Renardo Green. I like some of the young linebackers. I'm not saying it's a bad D. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ripping this D. I'm just saying elite. This is not the 2000 Ravens. This is not the 2002 Bucks. This is not the mid-70s Steelers. This is not the 85 Bears. This is not the 86 Giants. This is not the 84 Niners. This is not the 2013 or 2012 Seahawks. It's a good D with a first-year coordinator. That's it. All right. But let's get back on the conversation here. The Commanders moved Jahan Dotson to the Eagles for picks. And a lot of speculation is that they may go after Brandon Aiyuk. Aiyuk went on the Pivot podcast and he said, I want to be a Niner. And he said, if I can't be a Niner, I want to be a Steeler or I want to be a Commander. The Steelers, according to reports, are offering a 2nd and a 3rd round draft choice. So I'm been on the record as saying you trade Aiyuk for a 2nd and a 3rd round draft choice and you're not a Super Bowl contender this year. And I believe that. Now, there's some connections between the Commanders and the Niners, and we all know what they are. Jaden Daniels was Aiyuk's teammate at ASU. They're buddies. They talk every day. They hang out. If you want to make Jaden Daniels a success, why not add a great young receiver like Brandon Aiyuk to scary Terry McLaurin, and boom, you've got as good a combo right there as almost anybody in football. And then there's Adam Peters, who, has been a long-time 49er, executive, probably had a big hand in the drafting of Brandon Aiyuk, and is now the general manager in Washington. Then you mix in the fact that the Commanders have a ton of cap room, and that they're not like a first-year regime, a normal first-year regime that wants to take, year 1, we'll take it slow. Then year 2, we're looking to get a little bit better, maybe 500. Year 3, no. They, Bob Myers went there, and Peters went there. They are in a dead sprint to resuscitate the dormant, dead, iconic brand of the Washington Redskins / Commanders that died under Daniel Snyder. And they're in such a mad rush to do this. Why? Because they have one of the oldest stadiums in pro football, one of the least, revenue generating stadiums and facilities in the entire league. They know they need a big time new facility there. So they need to make themselves relevant and competitive and win over the fan base and put people in the seats like ASAP, win as soon as possible, get a stadium initiative on the ballot, get it passed, get the stadium built, and suddenly their value as a franchise is going to go up dramatically, exponentially. That was the plan of the new Commanders ownership. Why is Bob Myers in D.C.? For that reason. To find Adam Peters, to find Dan Quinn, to turn this around. They signed 20 free agents. Does that sound like a team that's on a 5-year plan? 5 teams on 5-year plans don't sign 20 veteran free agents in year one. The Commanders are in a sprint to be relevant, to put butts in the seats, to get that stadium initiative on the ballot, get it passed, get it built, and to up the value of that franchise by hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the plan. That's what Myers is doing there. That's why he bypassed basketball opportunities and TV opportunities, because he wants to resuscitate this iconic brand, get that stadium built, and make a S-ton of money. That's the Commanders' game plan. And Aiyuk fits it, because they want to go from last to first. They want to go from worst to first. They want to win the division. They want to go to the playoffs. They're trying to get this thing turned around like yesterday. That's why they signed all those veteran free agents. They have a rookie quarterback, but they want to win. Well, how do you win with a rookie quarterback? You surround him with great weapons. Well, he's got scary Terry McLaurin, and if he gets Aiyuk, now you'd have as good a tandem as there almost is. So Peter's connection, Daniel's connection to Aiyuk. Aiyuk said on the Pivot Pod that he wanted to be a Niner, a Steeler, or a Washington Commander. Okay. So we understand that Aiyuk wants the Commanders. And there's reason to believe that at least Jaden Daniels probably wants Aiyuk. Does Peters want Aiyuk? I don't know. Does Dan Quinn want Aiyuk? I don't know. Do the Commanders want a premier receiver opposite McLaurin? I would think they do. They just pawned off Jahan Dotson for picks. And a lot of people are speculating that Aiyuk is going to be on their list of, wide receivers to get to replace Dotson. Okay, but there's this little tricky thing. You still got to satisfy the San Francisco 49ers in a trade. The Commanders have cap room for days. They're going to be able to pay Aiyuk every penny he wants and then some. That's part of the intrigue of going from a Super Bowl, playing 49er team to a Commander team that's a circus and has been a circus. But they think that better days ahead are coming in Maryland. They believe in Adam Peters. They believe in Bob Myers. They believe in Dan Quinn. They think they've turned the page. They think they're going to resuscitate this iconic brand almost instantaneously. So they can pay him. The question is, can they acquire him? And what would it take from the 49ers point of view to give up Brandon Aiyuk? Once again, I'll say the same thing here that I said before with the Steelers. If it's draft pick compensation in 2025 or 2026, that's a non-starter. That's an absolute non-starter. You can't look Trent Williams in the eye when he's 35 or whatever he is and say, hey, by the way, yeah, we're getting rid of our all-pro wide receiver in your what could be the final year of your NFL career. And we may have just pissed away your chance to win a Super Bowl, but we got 2025 draft picks. Trent's gonna sit there and punch you in the face if you go to him with that. Hey, Trent, we traded Aiyuk, but we got 2025 second-round pick. He's like, so what? This is it for me. He may return in 2025, but it's not guaranteed. It's far from a lock. So Trent ain't going to be happy. You think Niner fans are going to be happy as they're getting ready to watch the season start and you just traded, one of the main attractions for a future deal? I mean, you want to see an unhappy fan base. Doesn't matter what fan base we're talking about. Just announce to your fan base on the eve of next year's NFL draft that you traded your first-round pick for a first-round pick in the next draft and see how that goes over. You don't see a lot of those trades. You notice that you haven't seen a lot of those trades in our lifetime. You'd hardly ever on the eve of the draft see a team say, you know what, we're trading our first-round pick for a first-round pick in next year's draft. We're going to punt on this year's draft, and we're going to go to next year's draft. We want assets next year. Well, we care about next year, and we're sure as hell going to care about it when it gets here. But right now, it's kind of not a priority. And if you trade Brandon Aiyuk, a 2024 asset, for a 2025 draft choice, Trent Williams is pissed. The fans are pissed. The media is pissed. Everybody's pissed, and they're all pissed at Lynch and Shanahan, and those guys are going to have to wear it. So, doesn't seem to me that 2025 draft capital is going to move the needle or get this deal done. So do the so the Steelers didn't really have any players to offer, or at least didn't have players that they wanted to offer, and a deal never was struck, and he never became a Steeler. You know, Aiyuk has never been a Pittsburgh Steeler, probably because the offer wasn't good enough to make John Lynch pull the trigger on a trade. So what do the Commanders have that the 49ers want? And that's also a very difficult conversation. What do the Niners need? Well, the Niners could use a wide receiver if they trade Aiyuk, but do the Commanders have a receiver? They just traded Jahan Dotson. They're not going to trade you McLaurin. I don't know that for sure, but I feel pretty confident in saying that they're not going to trade McLaurin. They're going to keep McLaurin. So you're not getting McLaurin, and you're not getting Jahan Dotson. So you're not getting a receiver back unless you want to take back the rookie Luke McCaffrey. And maybe Shanahan would. I don't know. I'll say this. Luke McCaffrey for Brandon Aiyuk is a bad trade, straight up, for the 49ers. 26-year-old all-pro for some rookie fourth-round pick who's played 1 year of wide receiver after being a collegiate quarterback. I mean, come on. You can't make that trade. That cannot be a straight-up trade. But it doesn't mean that the Niners wouldn't like to have McCaffrey. And if you look at the way Cowings played in practice this week and what Pearsall has shown, maybe the Niners would be happy with McCaffrey. But I don't think you could go straight up. The Commanders also have Jonathan Allen. Now you're talking. If Adam Peters calls tomorrow and says, "Hey, John, I'll give you Jonathan Allen and Luke McCaffrey for Brandon," would you do it? I would. And I don't, to me, I've already, I put it out on Twitter earlier today. If the Niners trade Brandon Aiyuk, they're not a Super Bowl contender. And I firmly believe that. You trade Brandon Aiyuk away and take draft pick compensation back, so you get nothing back in return in the present. You're not going to go to the next year's Super Bowl, in my opinion. But if you can get Luke McCaffrey and Jonathan Allen, now you've got a really good defensive tackle and a promising young receiver who's cheap. That's not bad. The other name that's intriguing to me in Washington is Emmanuel Forbes. Now you say, well, Krug, they just drafted Emmanuel Forbes in the first round a year ago. The key phrase there being a year ago. That was a different regime. That was the last regime. That was not Adam Peters. So Forbes is a sticky-fingered corner who's really, lacks some body weight and physicality. But, man, he's got unbelievable break on the football. The guy had like 6 or 7 pick sixes in college alone. He's a little thin, but Niners are always looking for corners. They have a bunch, but, man, Forbes would be nice. So that's what I'd be interested in right there. You want to throw Emmanuel Forbes and, some draft capital. Maybe I'll listen. If you're offering Jonathan Allen and Luke McCaffrey, I'll do that. If you're offering Jonathan Allen and a draft choice, I would think about that depending on what the pick was. But you trade Brandon Aiyuk for nothing in 2024, and you're not going to win the Super Bowl. So you have to, whether you trade him to Pittsburgh, you trade him to Washington, if you trade Brandon Aiyuk, who's an all-pro 26-year-old wide receiver, and you get nothing back, you're not going to be as good. This just in. You lose all pro players, you're not as good. So when JT the Brick came on the show and said, hey, if they trade Brandon Aiyuk for draft picks in 2025, they're not Super Bowl contenders, I would love to push back and say, you're wrong, Brick. But he's not. He's right. He's absolutely right. You can't. The Niners, it's not like the Niners have won the last 3 Super Bowls by 4 touchdowns and they had a huge margin and the rest of the league is miles behind them. That's not their situation. They lost the Super Bowl. The Chiefs were better. The Lions and Packers are ascending teams. You could argue the Eagles have had a more productive offseason. There's stiff competition between Green Bay, Detroit, and Philly in the division or in the conference, and then Baltimore, Houston, Kansas City in the league. That the 49ers cannot kiss off a all-pro wide receiver, take back nothing, and still be like, we're big-time Super Bowl contenders. You're a lesser of a Super Bowl contender without a doubt. You're probably not a Super Bowl contender, to be completely honest, without Aiyuk if you get back draft picks. But what if you get back Jonathan Allen? What if you got back Jonathan Allen and Luke McCaffrey? You could start Cowing or Pearsall opposite opposite Debo and JJ, and that, they essentially could replace Aiyuk on the field, and then you would add a big time defensive lineman. I mean, Jonathan Allen would say, "Hey, Malik Collins, sit down." You add Jonathan Allen, and now it's Hargrave and Allen inside, with Malik Collins as your third tackle. Now you're better. Now your defensive line's kind of, you might be the best defensive line you've had here if you add Jonathan Allen to it. That's a big if, but that's what I would want in return. If I'm trading Brandon Aiyuk to the Commanders, I want Luke McCaffrey and Jonathan Allen, or I want Emmanuel Forbes and 2 or 3 draft picks. I mean, I want something that's going to help me win in 2024. I don't want just 2025 draft picks. But it is interesting, and it does make you wonder, did the Commanders move Jahan Dotson because they have a plan to, consummate a trade with the 49ers for Brandon Aiyuk? Or is that have nothing to do with Aiyuk? I don't know. And I guess we're going to find out. The one thing we do know is Aiyuk had a meeting with the 49ers a couple of days ago. He has not been at practice the last couple of days. What does that mean? I don't know. Have you noticed we're asking lots of questions that we don't have answers to? I don't know. I don't know what it means. Could mean that things went south in their in their last meeting. Could be, then there's a lot of speculation out there that the 49er ownership, may be balking at paying Aiyuk what he's asking for. Never really considered that ownership had a position on this. Always kind of thought of it as a Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch call. But it's possible that there's some power that, within the ownership group that's like, hey, you know what? We don't like the idea of paying Brandon Aiyuk this money. And that could be a factor in this whole thing that we're not even factoring in and haven't really discussed or analyzed. And it hasn't been really discussed much throughout, the 49er conversation on the radio, television, YouTube. Hasn't been a lot of conversation about that. But what if the ownership is the key factor that's preventing this Aiyuk 49er contract extension from getting done? What if Jed or somebody in the ownership group is like, the family just is like, no, you know what? We don't want to pay Aiyuk. We don't think that's the right decision. That could be at play here. So nothing is as it seems. There's always factors that we don't bank on. I kind of put it down in the win column that Aiyuk was coming back to the Niners after Debo said it to Kay Adams the other day. Yeah, he's going to be on the team. So I kind of figured, well, if Debo's saying it, then it's got to be true. And I still think if I had to wager everything I owned on an outcome here, I'd still wager on the Niners probably signing Aiyuk. But the last couple of days of silence, the volatility of these negotiations, the prediction of the guy in Pittsburgh that they're going to trade him to Pittsburgh for a second and a third, I can't see that happening on the eve of the season. And then today's Jahan Dotson trade from the Commanders to the Eagles for draft picks kind of makes me wonder if the Commanders are dreaming the Aiyuk dream. And if the if you're Brandon Aiyuk, I don't understand why he would leave the Niners. Why would you leave the West Coast? Kyle Shanahan, this offense, these weapons, this quarterback. I don't get it. There's nothing he can say to me that would make me understand why Tomlin, Pittsburgh, PA, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and the Steeler offense is a better fit. But whatever. But the Steelers have looked awful in the preseason. Russell Wilson stinks. He's done. Put a fork in him. He's through. Justin Fields never got started. He stinks. The Steelers' offense is garbage. They're winning squat. So, you know what? Brandon's a pretty smart guy. He probably saw that and was like, you know what? I don't know if I want to go there. You know, he didn't want, I mean, it's not like he's just about the money. The Patriots offered the most money. He didn't want to go there. Why? Because he understands that the New England Patriots in 2024 are the equivalent of NFL Siberia. Nobody wants to play for the Patriots. The Patriots, they're awful. They've got tons of people, all kinds of expectations, all kinds of focus and scrutiny, all kinds of these spoiled New England fans who have done nothing but win, and they're going to lose everything. And he knows it. So if it was all about the money, he would have gone there. But it's not all about the money. He wants to win. So now he's looking at the Steelers, and he's like, whoa, Steelers suck. They're terrible. I mean, could we even win there? So now I think if you're Brandon Aiyuk and you're looking around for options and you want the Niners to pay you want to get paid and you're looking for options, Patriots offered the money, but you're going to lose. Steelers have offered less money, but maybe more than the Niners, but you're still going to lose. The Niners have offered what they're offering, whatever it is, 26, 27, 28. You probably got easily the best chance to win there, and you got the best quarterback of these options. But then there's this Commanders option. And Jaden Daniels, Aiyuk is a smart guy, but the one ridiculously stupid comment that he made this offseason, I would have no problem telling him to his face how stupid that comment was that Jaden Daniels, he believes, is going to take his game to the next level. Really? A guy who's never played ever in the NFL, and you're confident that he is the quarterback, not Brock Purdy, but Jaden Daniels will be the quarterback who's going to take your game to the next level. Wow, man. That's a statement. That is a statement. That's a big belief in a guy who hasn't done anything in the NFL. So we'll see on that one. I thought that was, to me, if I was Brock Purdy, I would have been like, what? If I was Kyle Shanahan and I heard that, I would have been like, what? You want to go play in that offense for the Commanders, for that quarterback over Brock Purdy and what the 49ers have cooking? Really? That's what you want? Be careful what you wish for. In some ways, I almost feel like you ought to send him to Washington just so he can see firsthand that be careful what you wish for. It's a rookie quarterback. That's a rookie quarterback. We don't know what that guy's going to be. He might be good. He might not. That's a rookie quarterback. So anyway, that's where we're at. If you're Aiyuk and it's personal between you and Shanahan, or if you're the ownership group for the Niners, the Yorks, and for whatever reason, it's gotten kind of personal with Aiyuk, and there's some kind of something beyond dollars and cents and reason and football reasons that are standing between these two sides getting together, then maybe there is room for a third team to roll in. But you're not going to roll in with 2025 draft picks and get this done. I can't imagine that. Because John Lynch is going to get ripped. Kyle Shanahan's going to get ripped. The fans are going to lose their S. They're going to town on the Niner duo. They will bury Shanahan and Lynch, and absolutely they will eviscerate these guys if they trade Brandon Aiyuk for nothing that they can use in 2024. So I think Lynch was smart to back away from whatever offer the Steelers had. But now you kind of wonder, are the Commanders in this thing? Or do the Commanders want Aiyuk? Are they going to jump into the mix here? And if so, what are they going to give? Because once again, 2025 draft capital alone probably isn't going to make it happen. You probably got to move a Jonathan Allen. You may have to move an Emmanuel Forbes. You might have to move a Luke McCaffrey. You know, you're not going to typically get a 26-year-old all-pro receiver for nothing or for just, draft pick compensation in the future. And if it is draft pick compensation in the future, it's probably going to have to be first-round pick, a first-round pick, because, the old saying, you want to pay today, you pay X. You want to pay tomorrow, you pay more. So you want to defer your payment to 2025 draft, you're going to pay more than if you give the 49ers players that they could use today. So I don't want to move Aiyuk, and I'll make it perfectly clear. If you move Aiyuk for picks, you aren't winning anything. And Aiyuk, I think, insulted Purdy and Shanahan and the Niners when he suggested that, Jaden Daniels and the Commanders were Shangri-La. That was an insult. And that one, at least I've remembered it. I don't know if Shanahan or Purdy remembers it or care, but that was an insult. And now, are the Commanders interested? And if so, are they going to bring a real offer to the table? And if they offer Jonathan Allen or Luke McCaffrey or Emmanuel Forbes or some combination of those guys and picks, with the 49ers bite? I'm as much as I would like to think no, I kind of think that at this juncture, as we sit here on the 22nd of August, that this deal hasn't gotten done probably for more reasons than financial reasons. I mean, I think I don't have sources, and I don't have any indications really. I just get the feeling that this thing is volatile, day to day, could still go in any direction. I'd love to feel like Aiyuk is going to be a 49er. But there's something about the way this thing has gone that makes me think that he's not. Trent Williams holding out, not holding in. And yet the Niners seem like, yeah, he'll be back. We'll work it out. Having good conversations, good dialogue. It all seems very like, like they're all on the same page. But Aiyuk, it doesn't seem that way. And now with the Commanders making this move today, shedding a wide receiver does kind of beg the question. Are they getting ready to add Aiyuk? And if so, are they going to come clean with a real offer? Or is John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan going to take their popular duo right now, right? 49ers have been in the NFC Championship game an awful lot recently. 49ers been in a couple Super Bowls. Only the truly crazy fans are like, they haven't won a Super Bowl. Most of the fans pretty satisfied with John Lynch, pretty satisfied with Kyle Shanahan. You want to see that satisfaction go south? Trade this player for nothing. Trade this player for 2025 draft capital. Voluntarily become worse as September approaches, and you'll see the fans bury Shanahan and Lynch. You will see those guys go from the most popular guys to the least popular guys in the blink of a freaking eye. So, and Lynch is smart. He knows it. He absolutely knows it. Shanahan's smart too. These guys know it. They're keenly aware. And I think that's why they haven't pulled the trigger on a trade with the Steelers, because trading Aiyuk for a second and a third hurts your chances of winning this year. Everybody knows it. There is no way you can sell that as anything other than a fail. And believe me, the media people are going to crush, and the fans are going to crush. So don't make that deal. Don't hand Aiyuk over for 2025 draft capital. If you do move him, get something significant that can help you this year. And the fans are probably still with you. You trade him for the future draft capital. Oh my God. I can only imagine. I can only imagine, especially if you do it right near week one. And it's like they're dreaming of a week one team with CMC and Debo and Aiyuk and Kittle and Purdy. And all of a sudden you trade Aiyuk for 2025 draft capital. I mean, why not just announce to all 5-year-olds entering Disneyland that Mickey has been traded? We traded Mickey Mouse. All these 5-year-olds walking into Disneyland crying, they traded Mickey. They traded Mickey. Well, it's going to be, replace those 5-year-olds with 49er fans and replace that sadness with anger. And that's what it's going to be like if they give away Brandon Aiyuk. Don't do it. John Lynch. And if you do it, get somebody good in return, or get off Twitter and maybe turn off your phone and get ready for an avalanche of negativity. All right, that does it for the video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.